Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to this nice chilly afternoon. The board did meet in closed session and we have no reportable items. Jennifer, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time, either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. Do we have any public comments concerning items on the agenda? Off the agenda? No? Lamar, nothing?
No.
Okay, seeing that, we'll move on to our board and executive reports. Our first report will be our student trustee report. Jennifer.
Good evening, everybody. Some things to mention about what Student Senate's been up to, or just the Student Activities and Affairs Office. Graduation's right around the corner, so today was actually the day of the Grad Fest, which is like a kickoff event where graduate people who are about to graduate can come and get their caps and gowns and kind of celebrate and get their caps and gowns as well. The elections for the Student Senate Board for 2015-2016 is also coming around. The deadline for the application is this coming Friday the 17th. And also something to mention from the student activities area as well, the STEPS event. This coming Thursday and this coming Saturday, we already have surpassed 1,200 RSVPs, which is really good. We're aiming for a little over 1,500, I believe. So we're well on our way over there. And then also the DC trip. Abby Gregory, Student Senate President, and I and our advisor Debbie Douglas had the wonderful opportunity to attend the DC conference this past about a month ago almost. It was an amazing experience. To kind of recap what we did, of course we had a lot of time for sightseeing, but the actual conference was amazing. There's workshops dealing with all different types of student issues, such as I made a note of them. The federal Pell Grant, America's College Promise, student loan payments with pre-tax dollars, and DREAM Act. And all of these workshops were run by students, and it was so amazing to talk to students from all over the country and to kind of see what their kind of student issues on their campuses were and what our issues here were, and to kind of come together, and the passion from all the students was amazing. We also had great guest speakers such as Ralph Nader that spoke to us. It was very interesting to listen to him speak and speak of the Green Party, and I will say when it came time for comments, a lot of students got very passionate. For some students were, I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and he was kind of like, okay. It was
kind of like Washington, D.C. Huh?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. Some of these students just very passionate. It was an amazing experience. Some sites we got to see. I had never been to the East Coast, so seeing our nation's capital up front, like I usually see the White House on TV, but actually being able to tour inside the White House and the state capitol. We also got to meet with our Congressman Devin Nunes. That was also a great experience. We got a state capitol tour right afterwards, and seeing all the architecture and the history of Washington, D.C. was once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which we're very grateful for. And yeah, and we have a little bit of a PowerPoint for the board. However, if anyone is interested on pictures from the trip, just contact me afterwards.
Just Facebook her.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It sounds like you're going to use all your
yes.
all that you learned there here at school, and I'm sure in your future. And thanks for this. It gives us a little. We all thought this is probably what you did, but it's nice to see that.
I had a longer PowerPoint, so you guys want more photos. We took about 1,000.
We could have given you the next couple board meetings, and you could have just given us snippets at each one.
Yeah.
Of course.
So one quick question though, Jennifer, this picture of you and Abby at the desk in the Oval Office, Is that staged or are you really in the Oval Office?
Like you said, the PowerPoint was about 15 slides, so the actual photo of us in front of the White House was the slide after, which got cut out. This was just in a souvenir shop by the White House.
I was gonna say,
I
man,
don't
if
see
you,
no pictures of
if you
the
got
picture.
into the Oval Office, you have some pull.
Yeah, however, I will say the highlight of the trip by far, our advisor, Debbie Douglas, had pulled some strings and got us a private tour of the Washington Monument after hours. So we got to go 555 feet up after hours. We didn't have to wait in line, and we got all the way to the top of the Washington Monument. I got to see the sunrise behind the Lincoln Memorial, and that photo, oh, it was so amazing. I have so many photos.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions, board members? Greg?
Well, I just want to say, there seems to be a ring in our PA system tonight.
Yeah, is there something you can adjust?
We got new speakers in the ceilings.
Is there anything we can turn
We don't
down?
You can turn it down.
What's that?
I can turn it down.
Yeah, if you want to give it a try.
Yeah, well, what I can hear is I can hear the speakers.
We can hear you breathing.
It's all for the camera. Thanks, Steve. I'd hold my breath, but we're gonna be here too long.
I know, that's all kind
That's
That's better.
That's a little bit better, yeah. Can you still hear us, Earl?
Yeah, that's this
Oh,
one.
I'm doing fine.
Okay. Making
The
sure.
rest of you,
Your system feeds off
I
of
hear,
this.
I hear fine.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Carrie, thank you, you're doing good.
Okay, we'll move on to board member reports. Any board member reports? No? Okay. Foundation report, Mr. Foster.
Hello, everyone. Just want to brag about a couple of arts and lecture events that occurred just this past week. We had as part of April Poetry Month, we had the showing of the Dead Poets Society in our COS theater. It was open to the public. We had about 60 or 70 in attendance and had a great, just lively discussion about poetry and parenting and all the themes around that movie. So it was great to see that movie once again on the big screen. And our community really enjoyed that. We also had historian Stephen Miner pack out the Ponderosa on this past Thursday, and it was a great discussion about centering around the how the Russians were involved in the World War II. And just some of the sacrifices that country made, and some of the things that we did to support the Russians during all that. I learned quite a bit. The dinner before with Mr. Miner and at the event itself. So it was a great event. Also wanted to share that COS Foundation is celebrating hitting the 10 million mark in total assets. So we just surpassed $10 million in there, and that's a combination of generous support from the community and just sound investments in the portfolio to grow that fund to that size. The investment income is tracking well, and that's with a new investment advisor, so we were kind of sensitive to that. How's the new investment advisor going to go? And we've completed one business cycle with them, one year of investment, and it's tracking quite well. So our investment committee's happy, which means our board's happy with that.
Wasn't the advisor those with the other company and we just switched to?
The representative from one advisor that we were with had moved on a couple of years preceding, and then ultimately came around and said, hey, I think, I've been with the company long enough, I really enjoy having you folks as an accountant. You want to come over, this is what our firm provides. And so the investment committee did make that move as a partial result of that. But certainly, especially now that person has moved on to another company and is actually running an investment fund, so she's kind of out of that business. We're remaining with the firm, and the firm is serving us quite well. So we're happy with the move, regardless of that. We've also, now that we have it kind of in the right place, we've been kind of pulling cash from different spots that weren't earning much interest anywhere and putting it in this portfolio. So we're hoping to leverage the cash that we do have in our investment portfolio much better in the near future. So coming off of that, our foundation board, I wanted to let you folks know that our foundation board approved the same level of investment income spending in 2015, 2016 as we had for 2014, 2015. So we call it a 4% spend policy. So 4% of our invested assets, the earnings up to 4% is going to be invested in underwriting the foundation operating expenses, covering scholarships that we fund through the foundation, and covering the COS projects that are funded through the RFP. And so everyone's been really comfortable with how strong our fundraisers have been, our investment income, as I mentioned, and just the momentum that those projects are kind of giving us. And so everyone wants to maintain that momentum, and so that's what we're going to do. You also have several events, a card full of them. Actually, I had to shrink the font to fit it on the card, so it's going to be a busy few weeks. If you have any questions, I'd be happy.
Golf tournament sold out?
Yes, we don't need any more players. Absolutely. We can always use a T sign, $250 a piece. T signs.
Well, and I thought it was very interesting that Coach Franco
Breakout, yes.
came up with the idea of doing a student alumni recognition for a minimum of $50, and that brought in over 2,000, 3,000.
Over 2 right now.
Yeah.
Well over 2. Yeah, I think we're in the 3s. So yeah, it was a great idea. It was actually getting the alums engaged in the financial development of the college, and so I wish to do that at a much larger scale. But that was a great example of if we just go out and ask, people will participate for sure.
Good. Any questions from Mr. Foster? Thank you for the report. Next, we will have our accreditation report. Dr. Lucero.
Good evening. One of the things that was just submitted was on March 31st, we completed the annual report. That was due March 31st, ACCJC, and there's a financial section and a section on just our general registration and our institutional outcomes that Dr. Oster presented last year. So those were just submitted to the ACCJC on the 31st. So we've completed that report. And under the accreditation report, we were going to give you regular updates on different items that deal with accreditation. So today, I was going to give you an update on our strategic plan, just to review the timeline with you and where we are with the objectives. And so as you recall, we started working on the strategic plan back in December, and it's based on our district goals and objectives. And we reviewed that with you at the January board retreat. In the last few months, we've had a workshop with several of the constituent groups on campus working together to look at draft district goals, objectives, and actions. And the Academic Senate held a summit in last month, and we had 80 people show up to look at our district objectives and actions, and that included faculty, staff, administrators, board members, and community members. And the draft overall strategic plan will be going to the District Governance Senate and Academic Senate at their April and May meetings, and it's scheduled to come to the board for the first and second, or an information item actually to the board in June. So I have a draft in front of you of where we are, and it's updated a little bit since the last time you've seen it. What you see in bold and underlined is anything that was added based on the feedback we received from the summit. So you have the district goal, which was on, for example, district goal number 1 is to increase student enrollment, and then the district objective is to increase the overall enrollment by 1.75% annually. And remember, these objectives are based on the data from the master plans. We looked at the data, we developed challenges, developed the goals, and then the specific objectives. And the strategic plan is for 3 years on those objectives. So our goal number 2 is to improving the rates at which students complete degree, certificate, and transfer objectives. So the draft for 2.1 is to increase the number of students who are transfer prepared annually. 2.2, increase the number of students who earn an associate degree or certificate annually. 2.3, increase percentage of first-time students who continue from fall to spring. And 2.4, increase course success and completion rates in pre-transfer English, math, and English as a second language courses annually. And the last one, to increase career technical education course success rates and program completion annually. Our district goal number 3 is to tailor and implement academic programs and student services to match the unique needs of our students and the demands of ongoing change in the workforce. And so we have 2 objectives: to reduce the achievement gap of disproportionately impacted student groups annually, as identified in our student equity plan, and to increase training for academic and student services staff and faculty to respond to the unique needs of our student population. And the last one is that the board, administration, faculty, and staff engage in best practices and staff development for improved operational systems and continuous improvement. The 4.1, there's 2 objectives, is to improve operational systems based upon data-driven decision-making as described in the 2.0 manuals. And 4.2 is to improve, sorry, there's lots of cross-outs in this one, management of human, physical, technological, and financial resources to advance district mission. So those are the drafts. That's where we are right now. Again, the bold and underlined is new language that came out of the summit, the Academic Senate Summit. So we've incorporated all of that feedback into this new draft. Again, it'll be going forward for feedback campus-wide. And we also had a campus-wide district forum. But we'll go back for feedback to the District Government Senate and Academic Senate in the next month, and then we'll be back here with the final draft in June. Any questions on any of that? I know I went through it quickly.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our superintendent president report.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to defer my time tonight to 2 particular items. First is going to be an introduction of our new Dean of Facilities, and we'll call up Vice President Christine Staton to introduce our new Dean.
Good evening. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce Byron Woods. He'll be up here in just a second to talk to you. Byron is a graduate of Cal Poly. He has a bachelor's of architecture from that university or college. And he has most recently been with AP Architecture in Bakersfield, I think for 7 or more years there. And at AP Architects, they exclusively work with community college districts. So I had actually heard his name a number of times from different colleges. And when I knew we had a position available, I thought a little light bulb went on, wondering if we might be able to get him here. But he has experience in project management, bond planning and management, facilities planning. He's done facilities master's plans for community colleges. So with that, Byron, you want to come on up and
Good evening. My name is Byron Woods. I'm the new Dean of Facilities. I'll jot down a couple minutes here. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I'd like to take a moment to thank President Carrizosa, Christine Staton, and the rest of the interview panels that were involved with the interview process. There's a lot of effort that went into that, so thank you very much for all your help. To give you a little background about myself, I am Valley born and bred. I grew up in the raisin capital of the world, San Juan, California, right up the road. So I'm familiar with the Valley. I attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, majored in architecture, and after that I ended up in Bakersfield for AP Architects, is where I worked. Worked there for the last 7.5 years, and that firm focuses solely on community college work. My experiences there, I started at the bottom as a draftsman, I worked my way up to project management, and all the way up to bond planning and facility planning. So I specialize, I would say, in planning, whether it's developing a master plan or taking care of facilities in general, and building a database. So I have a passion for facility planning, and I like to say I see it from the student's perspective. When I walk onto a campus, I like to reach out on the student. What does the student see? So yeah, I really look forward to experiencing that here. I've served at AP Architects. I've served as a consultant for more than half a dozen community college districts throughout the state. From down in the desert at Barstow College all the way up to Lake Tahoe Community College most recently, and Sierra College. So they're larger campuses. facility planning, project management, and bond planning. I'm very involved with the state capital outlay process and funding for, and the state-funded facility projects, as well as California Community College Chancellor's Office projects. So very involved with those as well. I recently got married and moved to Tulare just a couple months ago. So our new home is just a mile away from the Tulare Center out there. So we walk by all the time. It's a beautiful facility.
We can call you if some.
So you can call me if something's broken, I'll just walk right over there.
Horse was out last night, so I'll put your number on.
No problem.
Larry, you don't have a cell number yet? You'll get it tonight.
With that said, I am very excited about this opportunity. I understand the responsibilities with it. And I really look forward to just hitting the ground running. My first day is Thursday. And I know you'll probably find me roaming the campus out there with a clipboard and taking pictures and stuff. And I'll probably look like I'm lost, and I might be lost. So come up to me if you want to talk. I'm very approachable, very personable. And I look forward to meeting you all in person. So thanks again for this opportunity. I look forward to seeing you on campus.
Thanks. Do you have any questions? We usually have a few questions, but
Sure.
since you're really not on staff yet, John has one. I know.
Well, believe it or not, I've heard of you.
Really?
And it was all good, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any personal goals that you set now that the little that you know about COS? I know you're going to get
I
in
do.
and jump in, but
I don't know specific goals, but I've got a general idea of what I'd like to accomplish here right off the bat. It's interesting coming from the architectural side and going to the college side, because right now I've been a consultant for the college. So I'm used to all the policies in place, the governance structure. So it's, right now with facilities, you go out and hire an architect. Well, I have a lot of those qualities already. So it's, looking at it that way is going to be a little bit of a struggle, but I think it's going to definitely benefit the college.
well, welcome aboard. Any other questions?
We have a solar project coming on. I suspect you've heard about it or.
I have. Yes, I've been copying on quite a few emails recently, which is great though. I'm glad to be involved in this already. And I was involved with a couple of big solar projects, one comparable to the one that's going to be installed out at the Tulare Center. Very similar. So I speak the solar lingo and I'm very familiar with those plans. So I'm already diving into that project.
Nice to have you on board.
Yeah, welcome
Thank you
aboard.
very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for being here
Thanks.
tonight. Thank
Sure.
you.
And then the second item I'd like to spend a little bit of time on, you may recall that we prepared an information update for the board a while back on dispersal of the dairy cattle or dairy cows for the college. And Dr. Judo is here tonight to tell us how that sale went and what that final outcome looks like.
I sense something terribly wrong. Simply from the standpoint that this young lady here gets to go to Washington, D.C., spend time with two of my former students, David Valdeo and Devin Nunes, and get to go to the Washington Monument, while I get to go to the Tulare Sales Yard and see our cows being sold. So something that needs to change, President Carrizosa.
Yes, we thought that that's how things have gotten corrected.
Oh, okay.
That's how it's right.
Okay, I've put together a summary sheet of the cows that were sold on March 24th at the Tulare Sales Yard. The top portion gives you the number of replacements, Springer heifers, milk cows, beef cows, injured cows, or those that did not sell, and what the average per head was, either for per head cost for a milk cow or replacement, and then the beef value averaged about 90 cents, which is very high. So we averaged $1,555.59 on 106 head for a total income of $176,853.28. Below that, you have the expenses of the sale, which were commission, brand inspection, insurance, beef kennel, council, yardage, hauling, and so forth. So we had a net of $168,226.95. I received, met with Joey Arosa. I received the revenue and expenses from Iroso Dairy for feed costs. The first line item there is in 2014. We paid Iroso Dairy $15,180 for feed costs. of which that was the first year in 15 that we actually had to pay for feed because of the price of milk and the cost of feed. He reimbursed that to us, and so he also, there were 7 head that did not sell in the sale, so we had David Macedo go out, put a value on those, and he went ahead and purchased those from us. So therefore, all the animals are now taken care of. So we have about $18,025.50 of revenue. And then our feed costs for replacements, feed costs for first lactation animals, breeding charges, clipping charges for sale animals give us a total of $64,008.50. So our net due to Iroso Dairy is $45,983, which I've processed that for payment. So the net proceeds from the sale was $122,243.95. We advertised as requested. That cost $2,000 to run that twice in both papers. So our profit and loss from the sale was $122,443.95, which has now been deposited in the farm operations budget. When we get everything taken care of, then we'll have a net amount to go into the farm reserve. In 2009, from 2000 to 2014, we averaged about $9,000 per year on beef cow sales, which we got income through in our farm operations. So that's about $120,000 over the last 14 years to do that. The economy in 2009 was so bad that we would have lost, if we would have been operating the dairy, about $1,000 per cow. So that's about $65,000. Now, one item I'll be meeting with Christine tomorrow about is we do have quota, and I don't want to get into the whole milk cooling thing, but we've got about 150 pounds of quota, solids, non-fat. Kenny knows about this, but it's worth about $5.75 a pound. We need to dispose of that within 60 days of the last day that we started shipping. So I'm going to get those forms tomorrow. I'll meet with Christine. That's about $75,000 worth. And then we'll need to decide how we can declare that as surplus property and dispose of that. Any questions?
So that quota is an additional $75,000?
Of income, yes. Yes. Not to go back to 1965 when the law was put in, but basically, dairymen in the state of California were given a quota-based over base. In 1996, I turned that base in to dairymen at that time because then reapplied as a new shipper, so we about doubled the amount of quota, both butterfat and solid non-fat that we had. So that's worth about $5.75 per pound. We have about 150 pounds.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that wasn't an expense.
No, that'll be additional income. So I'll be working with Christine on that.
Or just the bottom line about what you expected.
That's more than I expected. David Macedo, and what they did at the sale was Joey brought in some good quality cattle from some other dairymen, 15 head that came from Joey Fernandez, fresh cows. Stannis has brought in 15 or 20 head. So that increased the interest from the buyers. And so we sold the COS cattle in between those other high ticket items. And so I would say we average between 150 and 200 per head more than what we get for market.
I just want to know what the Larry did with the commission, but I'll talk to him about that.
Would you?
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
Any other questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Moving on to reports. Our academic senate president's report, Dr. Trimble.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Academic Senate is continuing to work on its review of the VPs and APs, some of which are through to you. And trust me, there's a lot more in the pipeline. We are also working on a proposal for a new administrative procedure on limiting enrollment in summer school sessions. The idea here is that in order for the curriculum to be validated, that there should be limitations on enrollment so that during the regular semester, students are limited to no more than 19 units unless they get a waiver from student services. And if we are allowing students to take the equivalent of more than that during the summer school, then really it invalidates the curriculum. Because the idea behind curriculum is if there's 3 hours of lecture, there's 6 hours of outside work. So given the 4-week sessions, then they should not be taking multiple courses. So they're working on the math, and we'll be bringing that through the process and then bringing it forward to recommend to the administration. A number of us just returned from the State Academic Senate plenary session in San Francisco. We attended a number of different sessions. We take 4 people and they all split up and go to lots of different sessions. Some of the, there were issues on the equivalency processes across the state. Limited equivalencies are still a huge issue for various colleges. Some allow limited equivalencies, some do not. If you're not familiar with that, that would allow a college to grant equivalency to a faculty member to teach a single course instead of, say, all biology courses. They could just teach a single course. The Academic Senate is on record as not approving that or not endorsing that. We also do not have that ability. That's not a part of our procedures or policies as well. Equity issues and equity plans were also discussed. There was a very interesting presentation by Napa Valley College. They are the college that has volunteered to pilot the new accreditation standards. So they are the first ones doing it, and so they had a lot of good insight on things they've been doing. And like us, they did tell everyone that one of the things they found is that the staff at the ACCJC has been very helpful because they called them and asked for help, and they've been over and done a number of workshops with them. So their approach is, I actually find it to be really interesting how they're going forward with it. And I look forward to actually reading their self-evaluation. It sounds very interesting. There are 2 issues that came up in sessions that will directly impact COS in the relatively near future. One, Mr. Carrizosa is familiar with because the CEO's got the memo about the institutional effectiveness indicators and goals. These are yet another set of goals we're supposed to set per statute. Most of the ones they're going to use this year will not be controversial because the short time frame, they have to be through our process, approved by the Senate, and on the state website by the end of June. So we have 3 more meetings, so hopefully we'll get them through without any trouble. The other issue that came up is regarding professional development opportunities. A piece of legislation that was previously passed calls for a fairly substantial amount of money to go to professional development. However, in the initial budget, that money was taken out. It's expected now that in the May revise that's coming out, that money and maybe additional money will be replaced. The stipulation, however, for this funding is that each district that requests the funding must have a professional development committee group, but it cannot be simply a faculty group or a classified group or an administrative group. They want to force us to plan our professional development activities together as a group. In addition, it also requires that we have a professional development plan. So even though time is short, given the potential for a lot, they're actually talking about up to $25 million for the system. And given the fact that there will be a number of colleges that will not have this committee structure or a plan in place, that would mean that each district could receive even more money if we had something in place. The Senate is willing to work with administration and classified to see if we can get together a group of members representing PACE from classified and our faculty enrichment committee, and see if we can come up with a working group as well as a plan in order to meet the deadline, which will be the middle of the summer. So we'd like to put that on the table and hopefully we can work towards that. And that's all I have. Any questions?
No, thank you.
I will be speaking again on curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a cost to report?
Yes. Very brief one, because you will be dealing with it later, but there was a PERB, Public Employee Relations Board settlement between COSTA and the district with regard to the health benefits imposition. And while not everybody was happy with the results, I believe they're working. And if you need more comments when we discuss it later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a CSEA report?
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay. Do you have a CASAPA report?
No report.
No. Okay, thank you. We will move on to our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar?
Yes, number 2, please.
Okay. Any others?
What about number 6? It's talking about, we got it on the consent calendar, so there won't be any discussion on it.
You can either discuss it now and then take action on the remaining items as a group, or you can pull number 6, have an opportunity to make any comments about it you might like, and then take action on it separately.
I don't care.
Do board members want to make any comments relative to number 6? You can do that while you have a motion on the floor for the consent calendar.
I would just like to say that on behalf of the board, we're glad that item is resolved. Obviously not everybody got their way, but I think it's time to move on and look forward to not going there again. And hopefully that will benefit not just students, but our faculty, our morale, our whole administration. And it'll help COS 2.0 work much better, obviously, we don't know that. So, any other board members?
I move we approve the consent calendar minus item 2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our consent calendar minus item number 2. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Okay, we will take up item number 2, Mr. Rush.
Thank you. As to item number 2 on the first page, there's a reference to Deborah Hanson going on a reduced workload. I would like to strike that at this time. That's not to say that she's not going to go on a reduced workload, but the effective date is off. It should actually be August of 2015. However, this report goes to STRS, and we'd like to have it done correctly. So I will be bringing back this matter in the May board agenda item.
So we're not
Again,
changing the date, we're striking it.
We're striking it. We've got time to do it correctly. I prefer to do it in May. So with just that one exception, I would ask that the other remaining items on the consent item for personnel management be approved.
Now, a motion to approve the consent calendar personnel report minus the big workload for Deborah Hanson.
So moved.
Mr. Nunes, a second. Second. Moved by Mr. Sherman, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. Moving on to our first action item of the evening will be curriculum new modified and deleted.
Okay, there are 2 sections to the curriculum report, and I'll walk you through that. The first section is on the policies, COS general education policies, and I would like to take that second and then do the courses and certificates first. So starting on page 1, we start with the, there's a group of, the very first group is the modification and skill certificates. And that's under the dark line. These were already approved by the board, but we had written in the effective date of spring 2016, and we want to move that up to fall 2015. There was a wrong date for those programs on the, or the skill certificates in the original board report. So, well, actually not exactly wrong, but they got approved faster at the chancellor's office than we thought. So we wanted to make them effective in fall. So we're just adjusting the date. So on the automotive brake systems, engine technology, powertrain, millwork management, construction, the effective date is changing from spring 16 to fall 15. So that's just, you've already approved those, we're making that change. The rest of this page is modifications to courses, and they're all for the course identification number, which we've spoken about before, or the course descriptions or 5-year review. That's the same on page 2. Again, on page 3, these are 5-year review, minor changes on a couple of them to units, and course identification number. Page 4 is also the same thing. Page 5, again, modifications for 5-year review. A couple are adding distance learning addendums and updating descriptions. Page 6, and this is usually our big report, if you all recall, because it has to get through by the end of the year. So this is the larger report we always get. Modifications again on courses on page 6. Modifications to courses on page 7 and page 8. Modifications on page 9. And then page 10 is again modifications. Then you have the second and third item on page 10 are new courses, so there's 2 new courses there. And then you have deletion of courses on the rest of page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, and page 14. And those are either no longer being offered or they're deleted for repeatability. Page 14 is modifications of skill certificates. They're all here for a 5 or 2 year update. Page 15 is the same. Page 16 is the same, modifications on programs. Page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, all modifications on current programs. Page 21 is new programs, and you can see we have 2 of our brand new associate degree for transfer programs there in agriculture, business, and kinesiology, and 2 new skills certificates. And on page 22, we have a new certificate of achievement, new skill certificate, and then 4 deletions for programs that are no longer being offered. So I would like to recommend that the board approve this part of the curriculum report, and then we can take the first item if we can take that one for a motion after that. So I'm moving or recommending that the board approve the curriculum, the courses and programs that's been presented.
Okay, and item number 7, then we're going to have 2 items to vote on.
Yeah,
Yep. But not on this sheet, you get breaking into 2, did you? They're all on item 7. Okay. Okay, so do you have a motion to approve at this point our curriculum new modified and deleted? Moved by Mr. Mann. Have a second? Seconded by Mr. Sherman. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, now we will take on our policy item, right?
Yeah, and we have 3. The first item is our general education framework, and the other 2 items are 2 new policies for general education. And what I'm recommending to the Stan and the board is that we postpone this item or have the board table it until we're able to work with Academic Senate to do further evaluation on these 3 items and the potential impact on the students. In your packet, you have the 3 items. I'll walk you through those. There's the general education framework and policies. And I think, what's the first one that we have? Okay, so the first one is this policy number 2015-02-0401. And this is a recommendation that the GE pattern framework should only be open for proposed changes in a 5-year review. And you have the justification and rationale attached to that from the General Education Committee. And so they want to keep it so that it can only be updated every 5 years. Except for adding new courses, so they spell that out. The second policy you have is when courses are approved for GE, that they're automatically also approved for Cal State University General Education and COS General Education. So there's 2 types of general education, the one that a student would use for transfer to a CSU, and then the one they would use for a degree here at COS, an AA degree. That's a non-transfer degree. And so they're recommending that courses listed in the CSUGE can, even if it may be listed multiple times, can only be in one area of the COSGE. And there's a justification for that attached. And part of it is that the general education thought is that the CSUGE is larger so that their students can take more than one course, but they would like students at COS to be able to have a larger breadth of experience, and so they should take the courses from those various areas and not be able to count them in another area. So CSU basically allows you to double count. So if you take a history course, you can take it as a humanities or a social science. And at COS, they're recommending that we not be able to do that. Okay. The third document you have is the General Education Framework. And this is what students are required to complete when they do an AA degree or an AS degree here at the college's place, a non-transfer degree. So the changes to this from our current pattern are number 3, that there's 25 units, and our current GE pattern, which general education pattern, which started in 2013, is 22 units, and prior to that, it was 21 units. And then the way this works, it goes through the competencies that you need, and then the other 8 units that you need. So there's 8 units. These are our competency requirements. If you scroll down, Megan, it's 8 units of subject requirements, 16 units of general education. And then the other 2 big changes are that under Area C, that History 17 and 18, there's a star at the end, can only be used in Area C or for the American Institution subject requirement. And the other change is that Area D was taken out in our 13-14 general education pattern. This is being put back in. And then the star at the end is that political science may be used only once in Area D or the American Institutions requirement, which is also a new policy. And then there's an attachment with the justification of why of the timeline. Then they include some references to Title V, the rationale for reinstating Area D, the units, justifications for moving from 22 to 25, and then the number of AAAS degrees, the number of students it would impact here. So my recommendation is to table this until we can get further information, and I have a couple of reasons I just want to go through for that. One is that this new framework and policies were not discussed thoroughly enough with the faculty, and this comes from the General Education Committee and the Curriculum Committee on to Academic Senate. And as you know, in our governance manual, we are supposed to, and when you're a representative on one of those committees, you should take that information back to your faculty in your respective area and speak with them and share it with them. And the counseling faculty, who are the ones that implement this, only a few of them had seen it. It does go out in minutes from the Academic Senate, but in the General Education Committee and the Curriculum Committee, who see that before it even goes to Academic Senate, those constituents at the minimum should share that information in their faculty meetings. And that didn't happen, although there was some discussion and minutes out about it. There wasn't a larger discussion until Thursday with the counseling faculty on this issue. And the, again, in the layout is a little, is difficult to understand, and so some of that, it's hard to tell how the numbers add up. I think the counselors have like a cheat sheet for that, so I also think we need to update that a little bit. A second reason is that the data that was used, for example, that in this, in the justification that there were 1,000 degrees given over the last 5 years, I actually worked with our research department, and there were 3,170 AA and AS degrees offered over the past 5 years that would use the COS-GE pattern, and last year alone there were 545 of those degrees, so I think there's a little bigger impact than was assumed. And again, they talked about the disproportionate impact on social science or other Area D programs, but the current prerequisite study that the research office has done shows that there wasn't any disproportionate impact on social science areas over the past several years. It was any lowering of course offerings was across the college, not just in the social sciences area. Another reason is that we don't have a time to implement this in time for the fall semester. Part of the reason is that, major changes really should occur a little bit earlier, so we should have been bringing this forward earlier, because at this point the counselors have seen over 2,000 new students and counseled them on the former GE pattern, and they are already enrolled and taking classes and choosing their classes, and so in order to get it into the catalog for 15-16, it's late because we already have students who've been counseled on it. So I would like to look at getting this for the 16-17 catalog. Another reason the GE pattern was changed, just recently changed in 13-14 and only has been in effect for 2 years. So we really haven't had time to assess the current pattern. And the policy recommendation from the GE committee is not to change the pattern for 5 years, but this current one has only been in effect for 2 years. The discussion on the increase in units from 22 to 25 does have a negative impact on student completion because it's additional requirements for students. When you add in the Math 2230 class, which 80% of our associate degree students take, it's actually 29 units that students are required to take in our GE pattern. Prior to this year, in our 13-14 year, students were able to double count their political science or history, and this pattern eliminates that ability to double count. In the data looking at other colleges, we didn't include West Hills or Reedley College, and I just wanted to add that West Hills General Education Framework requires 22 units and Reedley College requires 26, in addition to the other ones that are listed there. On the two other policies, the GE Framework revision cycle, it's proposed that it only occur every 5 years, and I don't think that follows COS 2.0 processes. We have all of our processes, like our program reviews on an annual process, our strategic plan is a 3-year process. So the framework should be reviewed as needed or as required by law. And then the proposed policy on the CSU General Education and COS General Education limiting the cross-listed courses needs further research because it provides greater restrictions on COS students than CSU students, and we need to evaluate the possible impact on students. And our focus really should be on increasing the transfer and completion and not additional roadblocks. So I'm recommending that at this point that the board table this until I'm able to work with the General Education Committee, the Curriculum Committee, and Academic Senate to get further research on this and then also to implement it timely. So we would need to have a decision on any changes made by the fall or at least before March when the counselors do start in March advising, right, for the next year. So before we advise students for the following year.
Theo, want to start?
Okay, Theo, we'll start with you, and then I didn't have a number else, but just sort of keep it.
So there was a number of issues. Okay, I'm just gonna read this, I know it's not supposed to do this for the teacher, but, this just needs to get said. I feel it's necessary to provide a formal rebuttal to the statements made by Dr. Lucerna in her memo to the superintendent president related to these items dated April 13, 2015. Her allegations are serious and question the integrity of the Academic Senate and its processes. As stated in the material presented to the board in its agenda packet, the General Education Committee has been working on this for over 1 year. In our governance processes, the General Education Committee reports to the Curriculum Committee, which in turn reports to the Academic Senate. As such, these proposals have been through 3 rounds of review, suggested revisions, and final approvals. The first rationale for the request for tabling these proposals is that they were not properly vetted. The example given was that the members of the Counseling Division were not aware of these proposals. The Division Chair for Counseling is a member of the GE Committee. There is a representative from the Counseling Division on the Curriculum Committee, and there are 2 senators from the Counseling Division on the Academic Senate. Furthermore, these representatives are not the same person or persons. Therefore, at a minimum, at least 4 representatives from the division were aware of the proposals. There has been ample time for the constituents to report to their areas about the GE report proposals. Our governance manual clearly states that it is the responsibility of the representatives to report back to their constituent groups. In addition, the Academic Senate sends out its agendas and minutes to all faculty. All due diligence has been followed by the Academic Senate to ensure notification of all issues before it to all faculty. While we cannot ensure that the faculty will make themselves aware of what is occurring in governance groups, neither can we delay our important work to individually make sure that all faculty are aware of every issue. The second rationale states that limited data was used in making this decision and that the data is, quote, skewed or inaccurate. When Dr. Lucerna brought her concerns to the Academic Senate, she requested that we look at data before we made the decision. The data she requested was the data that you have in your packet. And that was what GE requirements do other colleges have as far as the number of units required and how many COS degrees will be impacted by this change. The Academic Senate agreed. The GE committee provided that information to the Academic Senate. They clearly told the Senate, if you'll scroll just a little bit up to the numbers of the units there, they clearly told the Senate that the COS was not the lowest required, and additional requirements would move us into the mid to high range of GE units required. Please note that the examples provided by the committee include examples of California community colleges from different locations and of different sizes. Some of them required more GE units and some required less GE units. There was no attempt to provide only the data that supported the proposal. Please also note that Fresno City College and Bakersfield College will still require more general ed units than COS. The list of degrees that you have in your packet are those degrees that are offered by COS and could be impacted. And Megan, if you could scroll to that, it's the spreadsheet with the colors. Yeah, thank you. This was also presented to the Academic Senate. The first column of units is for the required units and the restricted elective units for each degree. That means that those units the students are required to take in order to get their degree. The second column shows the number of units available as electives in order to get to the required 60. Only those degrees that have less than 3 units in that column would be affected by the change. 7 degrees would be potentially affected. The dean and the director responsible for the registered nursing program and the physical therapy assistant program came to the Academic Senate and explained the issue that their programs have because of the large number of units they are required by accrediting agencies already make it necessary for their students to take more than 60 units. This change in the GE pattern would negatively impact these majors. The Academic Senate agreed and requested that the GE committee specifically place exceptions to this requirement for those majors. The GE committee complied with that request. The other 5 degrees may, in fact, be affected by this change. These degrees require substantial, required, and restricted electives. The Academic Senate was fully aware when they made their decision. The number of students impacted will therefore be limited to the number of students who intend only to get an AA or an AS degree non-transferable in those degrees. The research I conducted today, I was able to determine that in 2013, 2014, the number of degrees awarded for these majors was as follows. Architecture was 5, automotive technology 6, construction technology 0, drafting 1, human services 9. Therefore, a total of 21 students would have been impacted if this change had been done prior to the year 2013. This does validate the assertion that a minimum number of students would be affected by these proposed changes. I take great exception to the statement that the data was limited and skewed. The data that was requested by administration was the data we looked at. If there were other data that they wanted us to consider, there was ample time to request that as well. These proposals reached the Academic Senate last November. Therefore, there's been over 5 months for the administration to provide their own data to support their assertions. The term skewed implies a deliberate effort to omit data that would counter an argument while only including data that would support the argument. I take offense to that assertion on behalf of the Academic Senate, the Curriculum Committee, and the General Education Committee. At no time did anyone in the administration provide any of these groups with data that contradicted the findings or assertions. The third rationale cites the issue of students who have already been counseled into courses for the fall and the timeliness of this request. I refer you to the information provided above. While 2,000 students may have been already counseled, the number affected is relatively small. In addition, even for those students affected, which are the entering freshmen, only the entering freshmen, and since this is their first semester, the majority of them will be taking requirements, both GE and major, that do fulfill existing requirements that were not changed with this proposal. They will have a minimum of 3 more semesters to pick up the additional GE units. I would also point out that by delaying the vote this evening, it will preclude these changes from appearing in the catalog as the deadline is this Friday. That would effectively delay the implementation for 1 year. The rationale was in 4 addressed in the packet. It was acknowledged by the GE committee that they had that change. It was only 2 years old. They also presented their rationale to the change back for the inclusion. If a decision is made that proves to be problematic, that should we not change that decision? Otherwise, we would continue to propagate the problems created by that initial decision. While not mentioned, their other rationales included that there's an accreditation requirement to have this area. And the third one was their ability to assess an existing GE learning outcome without the reinstatement of Area D. The Curriculum Committee and the Academic Senate agreed with the GE Committee. The addition of the 5th rationale, the addition of 3 units will impact only a very small number of degrees with a very small number of completers in those degrees. The last rationale, the statement that the proposed GE education revision cycle does not conform to our COS 2.0 process is both baffling and insulting. There are many processes that the district undertakes that occur periodically, the most recent being the review revision of the mission, the development of the master plan, and the development of the strategic plan. How would this be any different? In addition, the senators from the counseling division told the Academic Senate that this was a good idea because the issues with the catalog rights that students have and the difficulty in keeping track of those rights during counseling. This rationale insinuates that the alteration of the GE revision cycle is trying in some manner to circumvent our COS 2.0 processes. That is not the case, and there is certainly no evidence to suggest that. Again, I take exception to the statement on behalf of the Academic Senate, the Curriculum Committee, and the General Education Committee. 7, the proposal to limit cross-listed GE courses within the COS GE educational framework was discussed by the Academic Senate. The Senate is aware that the CSU GE pattern allows such double counting of courses. The Academic Senate agreed with the GE and the Curriculum Committee that this limitation would provide students with more breadth in their GE requirements and was, in fact, the main point of requiring general education. If the administration wanted further research, they have had over 5 months to conduct that research. This afternoon, I looked at the surrounding colleges at this item, as to this item. Fresno City, Reedley, and Porterville have the same stipulation, no double counting. I was unable to tell about West Hills because their catalog made no mention of this in either direction. So in 20 minutes, I was able to find at least 3/4 of our closest competitors have the same limitation to double counting as recommended to you. I would like to draw your attention to BPAP 2510, participation in local decision making. Under that BP, the board has designated that for degree and certificate requirements, the Board of Trustees will primarily rely on the recommendations of the Academic Senate. AP 2510 states that for those 10+1 issues that the board primarily relies on the Academic Senate, and I quote, "Rely primarily upon the advice and judgment of Academic Senate. A, Senate recommendations will normally be accepted. B, only in exceptional circumstances and for compelling reasons will a recommendation not be accepted. C, the Board of Trustees can receive advice from others." The Academic Senate does not believe that the exceptional circumstances and for compelling reasons clause has been met by the administration. The previous rebuttals to the arguments provided by the administration outline our reasons for this belief. Furthermore, it should be pointed out that the administration does not have the authority to present to the Board of Trustees an alternate proposal, as was stated in the original memo. All proposals for 10+1 items by statute, board policy, and administrative procedure come before the Academic Senate. The administration had ample time during the last 5 months to request additional data and to develop a counter-proposal to the Curriculum Committee and to the Academic Senate. I request that the Board of Trustees primarily rely on the Academic Senate and vote to pass the revision to the COS General Education Pattern and the General Education Revision Cycle Policy.
Stayed on track, you got a letter. Okay, Mr. Harris,
Well,
we got Jennifer up.
I think you've heard kind of the concerns.
We got a 2-minute
break.
Yeah, just for a moment. Take care. Just like a chair check out.
Yeah, he's not feeling very well.
Terry, they're waiting for you.
Terry.
Let's just check you out, Terry. Just make sure, buddy. I got all this, Terry. Don't worry about it. Don't touch it. Thank you. Terry was just showing some signs of a stroke. Had to sit down. Couldn't understand him, slurred speech, so we just, in abundance of caution, called an ambulance.
Yeah, he lost his.
So they're going to check him out. And
all right, thank you, Brian.
I'll handle this.
For helping us. Okay, again, I think, and I appreciate your presentation, Thea, and I wouldn't expect anything other than her to really strongly, and as you heard, personally and professionally represent the point of view of Academic Senate. I don't feel as though there's an argument per se or a rift. I apologize, I suppose, on behalf of Jennifer and all of us if any of the comments used brought offense to either you personally or to the Senate. That's certainly not the intent. I think as an administration, what we've encountered in this experience is that at these different meetings, and you have several academic deans sitting in here who were present at these lower level or entry level committee meetings, both general education and curriculum committee meetings, that the responsibility that we do have in the governance manual to reciprocate that information back and forth to our constituent groups may not have been done as thoroughly as we like. I think that's probably a statement that we could say is true still in many levels of our governance process as we work through our different committees. I do think we have a responsibility to get better at it. I think at least from our point of view, the faculty, both academic faculty and counselors that came forward, expressed concern, even though they did have as many as 4 counselor representatives in the process. When you put our adjuncts in there, and there's over 20, a number of counselors weren't aware and actually had concerns and expressed feelings different than support for this. So while it may not be our responsibility to advocate for them, and we could have easily said, hey, look, go back through the process, go back and talk to your representative, I think what we tried to do is identify a mechanism where we could have a little bit more time to go back and see if we can't resolve some of the concerns from the people at those fundamental levels, academic, faculty, and counselors, and therefore it's a recommendation to table the item. That doesn't reject it, it does set it back. Thea is right, it sets it back a year. And there may be some disagreement on our part about whether or not that's significant. I'm sure given a little bit more time, we could all dig into the numbers and find whether or not there's 21 students who have been affected or 121 students who have been affected. The point is, we feel like there were some opportunities for the process to have worked better, and we've gotten feedback from people involved in that process who have expressed concern and frustration, and we're asking for an opportunity for more time to work on that process and to make it better. Not here to argue the merits, not here to present an alternative proposal, but to acknowledge that from the administration standpoint, there's been some dissatisfaction with what our expectations are for the participation in the process, and tabling the item gives us more time to do that better. Hopefully go back, make this a learning experience, and try to do it better. And I think the vice president's here, the academic deans are here, Thea is still available. Honestly, I'm going to just say this, and I think this is my responsibility to say this. I'm going to discourage you as a board from diving down into the technical content of this matter. The issue here is about whether or not everybody in the room feels like the process worked as well as it should have, and whether or not this is the right place to try to intervene to redirect or correct the process. So my main points are, I believe the process could have worked better based on the feedback that we received from participants in the process. I still believe that the timing is not good. I know it may be a little Pollyanna, but if it's going to have a negative effect even on a small number of students, I think that's worth considering. And then I think there's still some question about the data. And I guess you could argue if the administration had more ideas and had more data they wanted us to look at, why weren't they bringing it forward? By the same token, there could be the discussion that we're not primarily the ones responsible for that, and so we were hoping that there would have been a more exhaustive approach to looking at the data from the people who were responsible for it. So maybe more conversations needed to be had there. So our feeling is that process, data, and timing are a big enough issue that this warrants more time.
Okay, do you have any board comments?
I'm going to make sure everyone else first.
I'd just like to say that, you're right, I can't read what's been presented to me and make the decision whether it's in our best interest to do it or not to do it. I mean, I'm letting other folks decide that issue, but when something is brought to us and we have a Friday deadline and now we need to move it or with some questions in mind, I kind of hesitate to do that. So that's my thinking.
Mr. Zuma.
This is a difficult issue for me. First of all, I don't want to get into the process of academic senate. That's almost none of my business. And I really do believe in participatory government. In fact, I'm the only board member here when it created. I'm the one that broke the logjam to actually prove it. I believe in it. Any institution that is not involved in electing everybody in it in order to come to good conclusions is a portable institution. we all went through the accreditation thing. And most of you all know what you did. But you know, the accreditation committee also talked to the board in public and also in private. And we were chastised severely for our failures to adhere to a structure of decision-making, and that the decision-making here hard to follow, is not based on data, and there's no accountability, no review process for what worked and what did not work. There were some other things said in private that, like, why did you let this happen, and what are you going to do about it? You know, I'm not very often stuck for answers, but it's stuck. Well, anyway, out of all that came COS 2.0. Not that the board drove it, because we didn't, but it did answer all these issues that were coming our way. COS 2.0 is creates a data-driven decision process. And it also creates a data-driven process for reviewing what you did last year to make sure that it works, it doesn't work, needs to be thrown out, needs to be expanded, needs to be modified, whatever it needs to do to make it better for our students, which then all falls in accountability. Is what we're doing, what we ought to be doing. You know, if it isn't, somebody needs to step in and take responsibility for fixing it. When I look at what's presented to us, and there's not enough in it for me to evaluate whether or not data drove it, and if so, what was. If you say it was data driven, I don't doubt it, but I can't see it, which comes back to the severe criticism we got from the accreditation board for just sitting here and approving stuff. I look at the very first one here. It has to do with the general education framework, revision cycle that says 5 years. Look at the wall over there, and that's an annual process. Are we going to put in something that we're going to leave alone for 5 years, even if the data from year from now says it doesn't work, or it needs to be made bigger or better or different or whatever? It kind of bothers me. Maybe there's a reason for it, but I don't see that explanation. So I'm in a real quandary. Primary rely, I read that over and over and over again, and I don't question that. I don't question that. I look at COS 2.0. One of the things that happened shortly after we got through the process, I asked a faculty member who had a great deal of respect what that person thought about COS 2.0 and how that would work. That person said to me, the greatest challenge is going to be to keep it. The greatest challenge is going to be to not revert to our old ways and not respect that process. I suspect we're going through a few growing pains, as the COS 2.0 applies from top to bottom. It's the board's responsibility to tell the administration when they're not following it, when they have to. And even though we must primarily rely, and I think I've been inclined to do so, if I can see the data, the process that went through it in a way that it can be reviewed. I am uninterested in delving into what the academic senate did or didn't do. I know that Thea is a very thorough person. I have to believe that if she had, no one could do better as far as conducting the process in the way it should be. But the documents presented to the board don't show us any data. And that accreditation board runs into this over and over and over, particularly the one private union. Data, 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 and if you don't get it, don't make a decision. I don't question that you guys looked at data, but I don't see it. And so for reasons different than what the administration set forth, I still think we should table it and give you guys an opportunity to put the board in a position where we have to approve. And without addressing those things, and I'm uninterested in opposing anything, because I do believe in primary rely. I think more work than necessary.
I'm going to say I agree with John, and it seems like, we would hope as a board that, this may be the first sort of issue that position the board doesn't like to doesn't like to be put in, I'll be honest. Obviously, we don't ever want to feel this type of tension, but if it's good tension and good can come out of it, then I'm all for it, truly. And I'm hearing that it doesn't sound like the procedure in terms of getting everyone that was at stake and had say in this, and obviously something happened in 213 that was made for good reason, and that seems to be trying to be undone or reverting back or adding on. And I feel like in that way, as a board, we're trying to see the procedures are being followed, and procedures are, I'm hoping that they're inclusive of everybody, and that we don't get this pushback, and I assume that's why administration is doing this.
I'd like to disagree with you.
Okay.
You know, we're interested in looking at the final product here, and look at the data and such. How Academic Senate conducts himself is Academic Senate business.
Yeah, but I believe as a board, though, we need to believe in 2.0 and the way the decision-making is happening, and it sounds here like the decision-making process somewhere went awry. That's why we're hearing what we're hearing.
Well, I don't care. I'm just looking at what's before us, and I don't see the data.
Well, yeah, but the data, I think, on these issues for a board, if we dig too deep, now we're micromanaging our academic senate.
It needs to be presented to us.
Yeah, it does. It does. I guess I'm trying to discern what level of data would we be looking for, and how much of that is our job as a board. I'm sensing more, you know, that there seems to be an issue on how it was done, and I'm trying to figure out to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right, you know, what this looks to me like is some well thought out opinions, with no data to support the opinions.
Yeah, I agree, and that was my first statement. I do agree with that 100%. Do we have any other board comments? Okay, Earl? Jennifer? Any further comments? Observations?
I honestly think Academic Senate, when they, I was at all but the last meeting, based their decisions or their vote on information that they got from their GE committee and their curriculum committee. And we had lengthy discussions at both of those meetings, requesting more data, requesting more information. Unfortunately, the data that was shared was old data. I asked the person who brought the data forward, and it was old data that I don't know exactly where it came from, because when I went to the research office, they were able to get that for me. Anyway, that's regardless, but there was no intention to demean anything the Academic Senate's done. Thea and I have worked extremely closely together, and we've talked about both of these issues at length, or this issue at length, and I just, I again, like John said, the content of it is, I may absolutely agree with the change that they're making, but the frustration has been with the way that the process went forward, that people on those various committees, and I know that's part of the argument here, but when you're serving on committee, you need to take that information back and make sure that the people it impacts have seen it. And I would honestly just, it's hard to when the people haven't seen it. So again, no malintention to Academic Senate. I think they did their job well with the information that they have before them.
Oh, yeah. Question, if we table this tonight, how does that affect the students?
It doesn't.
It won't have an immediate effect on them at all. It affects the opportunity to change this proposal by delaying it, for all intent and purposes, by delaying it for another year.
But it doesn't affect our students.
It doesn't have it won't affect a change, because we would remain status quo until it's brought back, correct?
Well, and I would...
Thea wanted to comment.
Thea, please.
Yeah, one thing is that the issue of the process is basically a non-issue. The process worked. The GE committee had their discussions. They developed the process. They developed the rationale. They sent it to curriculum committee. It's all well and good to say we need more data. What data? I mean, you can give everybody a pack of numbers that big, and you can still say, where's the data? Because the data doesn't agree with what your position is. The two issues that were brought before the Senate where it was going to negatively impact students' successful completion of degrees. So we looked at that. That's what that data is. The other one was it was going to bump us up to so many units. So that's the data that we showed them. We know we're bumping it up. We know that's an additional requirement of the students. So it isn't as if the intimation that the Senate would have made a different decision because they didn't have the right data. The right data then, by definition, is the data that supports your point of view. You know, that to me is a fallacy. You can't, I mean, you'll never get anything done. And if you make the position that if the academic senate, the district governance senate, or the student senate takes a position, and there are members of the constituency out there who disagree with it, therefore we should not accept the recommendation of the senates because there's a significant number of people who disagree, then everybody's going to be bringing in groups of people that disagree with senates, and we'll never get anything done. We have a process. We have constituent representation. Those constituents have responsibilities. If they don't meet their responsibilities, then the counseling division needs to be talking to their senator. They need to be talking to their division chair. It's not up to the board or the academic senate to enforce that. Not ever. Because first of all, it's not our job, and second of all, it's impossible. You simply can't do it. And you could, that way, if you use this as a rationale for tabling this, then anytime we find a group of people, say 10 or 15 people that didn't know about it and disagreed, how are you going to say, oh, but I'm going to pass it anyway? When tonight you say, I'm not going to pass it.
What Thea has been talking about was a reaction to some things that were said. However, it's not what I said. It's not what Ken said. What Ken said is probably more important than what even you read. So this is an issue that's got a lot of dissension. And we get it on Monday, it has to be approved by Friday. No, I don't want to do that either. His remarks probably make more sense than mine. And Thea, for one, I meant what I said. I think, I'm sure the academic said that they're supposed to, you just now outlined the issue perfectly. But that doesn't affect what I didn't say.
So what data is needed? I mean, truly.
I don't know, but there's none in here. There's none before the board. That's the point. The board didn't see anything.
So those numbers?
Well, yeah, just now, that's not. I'm not a bright guy. It takes me a while to sort it in.
Well, and the only thing I would say, Thea, I appreciate how you described it right now. And the first thing that went through my mind from a process standpoint is that if I were one of those many frustrated counselors, I should be going back to my counselor rep and having that conversation there. I get that. So you and I probably agree 99% on how best the institution should enforce our participatory system and who we should hold accountable for the roles and responsibilities that we play. I think maybe where I disagree with you is that at the board level, when you say that it should not be at this level ever, never, that we intervene. I think there I disagree, because at some point, even though the process may have worked perfectly, if we have some concern about the result having a potential negative impact on students, somewhere, somebody has to be able to say, wait, let's look at this again. And I'll take the heat for maybe having an opinion that you might disagree with about that. But I think somewhere along the line, when you have other kind of fairly big cross-section now of our colleagues, administrators and faculty expressing concern, it just makes, I agree with you, we can't let everybody who's mad about everything and any disagreement change what we're doing procedurally. But at some point, enough of it, there has to be a balance there, enough of it. If enough of it's happening, we didn't do something correctly. And I'm willing to push through and work on that, but not if I'm not sure that it may have a negative impact on our students. And I'm not sure. I will confess, I'm not sure, and that's the reason I expressed my concern.
Well, and I think as a board, we don't, obviously, this isn't about picking sides, and it's become, I think, we don't want to make it personal or emotional or get the certain person, right? We want to talk about our students here. But I do believe that, the position as a board member I never want to be put in is whose data is it and which one should we use? Because as a board, we have to all trust the same data and how it affects students. So, and it seems to me that I don't, board members, we don't want to micromanage the college and some of these policies really, in terms of board, I don't think it's our duty to dig into them this deep and offer our advice. The process has to work. But I agree with Stan in terms of if we're getting this much pushback, it seems like our constituents that maybe are feeling this way, hopefully we can make a change and that their input will be heard and better represented at academic senate, would be my hope. And maybe that's too Pollyanna,
Well,
but
I don't care about the pushback. I think that the presentation is not enough here for me to satisfy myself that they can apply to C 2.0 consider thing. The fact that somebody doesn't like it, I don't care.
yeah. But as a board, we still have to make a decision here to either table it or approve it tonight.
But not for that reason.
Not for that reason.
Make a motion.
Sure. Trying to decide whether I want to make a simple motion or complicated. I'll make it simple. I move that we table this motion for reconsideration at a later date.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Zumwalt, seconded by Mr. Sherman. Is there any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The item will be tabled and the board looks forward to seeing this back again with. Didn't quite have the right words there. Okay. Okay, moving on to item number 8. Thank you, Tia, for your letter and your thorough thoughts. I'm going to file that and keep it and hope that the process.
I just put it in my pocket to do the same.
Okay, yeah, we will keep those and take them to heart. We appreciate the time you spent on those and I hope you take that to heart. We truly do. Okay, moving on to item number 8, board policy revised. First reading.
Okay, these are first reading for your consideration to take action and move to second reading. I think they're pretty simple. We're still in the 4000 series, as Thea said earlier during her academic senate report. This has been the category of policies that have been moving through. And you can see on the top of these their identification as either a non-10+1 or 10+1. So those that are non-10+1 have been through the participatory process for feedback and input. You can see in bold and underline what's being added as new. And on the very first one, which is library and tutorial services, you'll notice the new language references equitable library and tutorial services. Again, aligning us with the requirements we have for accreditation and also for the Reader Privacy Act. The next one, 4060, is the delineation of functions agreement. And this one is relatively unchanged, but coming through for the board's first reading and consideration to move to second reading. The third one, the 4100, graduation requirements for degrees and certificates, as we've been talking about that. And you can see this is a separate strand of details about the Associate of Arts and Associate of Science degrees, students who have completed those subject requirements, the required GPAs, and then also how certificates of achievement are successfully completed and the minimum number of units for those. And again, this doesn't propose any new or revised language. And then finally on tonight's agenda is 4110. These last two, 4100, 4110, are 10+1 policies, and it's a simple policy on the description of honorary degrees.
How come 4100 isn't showing any changes? What's different? Or just totally new?
No, it's just coming through, having been reviewed, but still current and still valid. So it's going, kind of going through a re-ratification process, John. But what it enables us to do at the bottom is update the last time it was reviewed so that we keep those all current.
Okay, no change.
Right. And that's the same with 4110, with the exception of changing the College of the Sequoias to Sequoias Community College District. Yeah, and Megan just noticed that we're going to do that strike through for the second reading on 4100.
And 4100 is the name at the top, John, right under board policy, just is matching the others.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, do we have any board member questions regarding board policies for the first read? If none, could I entertain a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to waive the first reading and pass these items on the second reading.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Zumwalt, seconded by Mr. Nunes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion approved. Okay, our last item of the evening is item number 9, and it's our presentation of our reopener bargaining proposals for the district and CASAFA.
We are just finishing up our second year of the 3-year agreement with CASAFA. And one of the provisions within our current master agreement with CASAFA is that each side shall have the opportunity to open up salary and one article during the spring of 2015. Tonight represents the first step in the process of negotiating, and that is the sunshining of both the districts and CASAFA's reopener provisions. Within the board packet, you'll see the district's reopener proposals as well as CASAFA's reopener proposals. I'd like to point out that following tonight, these proposals will be available for public review in the Office of Human Resources Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. The purpose of tonight is to formally begin the process and acknowledge receipt of both of these proposals, announce their availability for review, and also announce a public hearing where the public will have an opportunity to comment on both of these proposals. And that public hearing will be on May 11th of 2015. So if I can get a recommendation that the board acknowledge receipt of these, announce they're available for review, and to also announce the public opportunity to comment on that.
Okay, do we have any questions of Mr. Ratch regarding item number 9? If not, can I get a motion to acknowledge receipt of both the district and CASAFA's collective bargaining proposals on the reopeners and announce the availability?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sherman, do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Zumwalt. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other comments? Thank you everyone for staying.
Do we have any, before you, does anybody have anything on Terry?
Yeah. He may have had, I guess I can sit down. He might have had a TIA, but he did not want to go to the hospital. Essentially refused to go, and a number of us chatted with him. He said he felt fine. He definitely had shown a lot of improvement. I'm trying to think who else was, yeah, you were here. So almost full recovery, although all of us still were concerned. But he went home, we had an officer follow him home to make sure he got home, and he agreed to go see a doctor tomorrow. That's where
You drove himself home?
Yep.
he was.
We followed.
No telling
He was
no?
being very determined.
Okay, okay.
Hope I shared it much there.
Okay, no.
Thank you.
I'll keep them in my prayers. Thank you for that update. Any further comments or questions? Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.